Let's have a look at the prizes. 2 cross-switcher in the prizes for Hugo. Now, we think that can be quite a problem. However, having 2 in the prizes is just as bad as just having 1, right? Because, of course, you have to use 2 to have that effect. So not too bad there for Hugo. And Hugo kicking us off in our round 13.
Let's go, round 13. Honestly, that doesn't sound real to me, but here we are with the first shivery chill of our game. And here we are having a look. 2 lightning type energy. Love that we could see an arm press. You mentioned yesterday how integral that could have been in that Charizard matchup, but unfortunately we didn't get to see it.
I really like the adoption of the 2 lightning energy for that specific reason. Having the ability to use arm press as well as that Ampu very much is such a good way of utilizing that Iron Hands EX. But of course, taking that playstyle, he will be able to take some early couple of prizes, of course, with that Ampu very much. And we see him putting it to the top of his deck. So maybe that's exactly the route that he wants to take.
Yeah, it's tough because there are multiple lines here that Hugo could be considering. There's a lot that could go on in his brain right now. We're thinking, okay, we need Bidoof, we need the card draw as early as humanly possible. We need a Frigibax, very integral to the basic strategy of this deck. And then we've got, you know, we've got our Iron Hands, which is the power card right now against Brent.
It's so important to get those Bibarel set up as early as possible. I know from experience that, of course, having the disruption in front of you that Giratina Vista has, the multiple Roxans, the potential Ionos, the path to the peaks, it's so integral to get those Bibarel set up as early as possible. And here we see Hugo prioritizing getting that Bidoof down as soon as possible, and that's exactly what he wants to be able to see. However, just has a few more resources in the hand as well. Another Frigibax coming down. That's not too bad. Having another, just mitigating the risk of having that existing Frigibax knocked out, of course, with the insurance in case Brent was able to play a potential escape rope play, and with the attachment to Chen Pao as well. I see the Baxcalibur in hand as well. I don't know if I saw a rare candy. However, it may just be a pass now from Hugo.
Yeah, Hugo's hand looks a little bit bare, but honestly, they've got the essentials down. This is what Chen Pao very much hoping for. Turn 1, at least 1 Bidoof, ideally 2 Frigibacks, especially when a Comfey is in front of you. Again, it's thinking about what could be. Could there be a Greninja? Could Brent, could Brent go for 1 or even both of these Frigibags? And that's the really scary thing, is that if Brent does run enough water energy and, and there they are, then, this could be pretty scary for Hugo not having any more Frigibax or protection for them.
Yeah, of course. And when you're at this stage of a tournament, you'll know what you're going to be coming up against most probably, right? But it's those little intricacies that these decks can have. Are they playing the multiple escape rope? Are they playing a reduced count of such and such? Are they playing the Iono? I have to be able to protect myself from those certain plays. And here we see Brent with his first deck search. The Battle VIP pass coming down. Looking at that possible Cramorant, we could see an early spit innocently on that Chen Pao, and nice soften up of damage could be what he wanted here.
It's never really as innocent as they say, though. Even just opting to slowly damage the opponent can have a huge impact late game.
Yeah, of course. And we know from one of our previous rounds yesterday, softening up those larger HP Pokemon like this Chen Pao will be such a good way for Brent to be able to take an easy 2 prizes, either on the next turn or maybe even a later turn with a Lost Mine.
Yeah, and just having a look at the deck list really quickly, Brent does run a very, very respectful amount of energy for a Lost Zone Giratina, including 3 water energy, which is really lovely to see, like the 1 extra, just for that kind of potential of a really awful flower selecting. I've seen some decks go down to 2, and I find that too scary.
No, of course, and without a mana feed down on Hugo's board, this could be a potential play for Brent, being able to use his own Moonlight Shuriken, of course, on those 2 quite vulnerable Frigibags on Hugo's board state. Hugo's definitely going to be wanting to look out for that mana fee in the next couple of turns.
Yeah, Hugo's going to need to get a wiggle on. Getting that mana fee is going to be absolutely crucial to success here. Luckily, it feels unlikely that a Radiant Greninja Moonlight Shuriken play could come about this turn, just due to kind of just not being able to get quite enough in the Lost Zone for a Mirage Gate this early on in the game. Especially with Giratina.
Yeah, speaking about tricky flower selectings as well, those 2 top cards that were drawn aren't too great. Water Energy and a Mirage Gate isn't fantastic of a choice to Lost Zone either one. Both fantastic resources, and taking away that Water Energy just reduces your odds of being able to get a Moonlight Shuriken up and running. And here we see the Jet Energy attached onto the Comfey, bringing it into the active, and a nice additional flower selecting, put another card into the Lost Zone. That's definitely what he would have wanted.
I consider Comfey a very floating and graceful Pokemon, so when I have the image in my head of a Jet Energy going zoom and like pushing it into the active forcefully, I'm like, oh no, Comfey, are you okay? Did you leave any flower selecting on the bench? We need to bring that forward, please.
Yeah, and going back to the game plans that we were speaking about earlier, the Radiant Greninja is in the prize cards for Hugo, so having that Moonlight Shuriken play taken away from him might come up trumps for him in this game. Of course, being able to go ahead with that game plan, he may take a more aggressive route here to try and take out those Giratina Vs earlier than possible.
Yeah, it's not looking fantastic. Although Hugo, as we assessed earlier, has the basics of a Chien-Pao board set up. It looks like Brent is definitely taking a stronger stance this early in the game. 3 in the Lost Zone so far. We need 1 more for that Cramorant to go live. Oh, here we go. Will it be off the Pokegear? We need the Colress Experiment.
We do need it. Do we see it? Yeah, we see it. Yeah, fantastic Pokegear there. Having that added consistency, we spoke about this yesterday as well. Having Pokegear as an additional out to turn 1 Colress's Experiment is so important, especially for these Lost Zone engines. They need to get as many cards in that Lost Zone as possible to get that engine up and running, get your Mirage Gates as early as possible, and of course, that all-important Star Requiem.
Here we go. Into the first Colress, 2 Grass Energy. Oh, that's not nice. And a Mirage Gate too.
Yeah, I think that was a Roxanne as well, or possible Giratina V.
That's a really tough flower selecting.
Yeah, that is not fantastic for Brent. I think I see the Giratina. It's a Giratina V and a Grass Energy hitting the Lost Zone early on. Now, this is a great board state for Brent, because if he's able to retreat into the Spit innocently, he is essentially putting that Chien-Pao to only 110 HP. If Hugo goes down the route of, okay, I'm going to knock out that Giratina V, that's the biggest actor on Brent's board here. The Cramorant will just easily respond with another knockout.
Oh, here we go. Yep, dealing with the first Frigibags and the Path to the Peak.
Yeah, Path to the Peak coming down. Shivery Chill not an option anymore for Hugo. And with that Spit innocently, that's such a great card. The Escape Rope acting as a potential gust, as well as the switch out. Of course, with this Lost Zone engine, you have the Comfeys in the active so often, but having that switch out as well as a potential gust or disruption in Escape Rope, you know, what a play.
Honestly, this hand isn't looking too hot for Hugo. It's looking like it might be on ice at the moment. We have the opportunity of the Bibarel, but really not much else. Scouring the deck right now for any potential option, but honestly, you know, we're going in for an Earthen Vessel now. I couldn't see if there was a supporter in Hugo's hand. I had a funny feeling there was, but it didn't seem to be one that he's wanting to play right away at very least. I don't know if Hugo's going to be able to thin his hand enough to be able to utilize the Bibarel, because there's no rare candy currently. No, an Earthen Vessel for no energy. You would imagine he's trying to evolve into that Bibarel to try and draw into as many cards as possible. Or did he? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, the Bibarel comes down, so he had additional 2 cards here from the draw. Oh, 3, sorry. Yeah, 3. But unfortunately, it feels like 2, because one of them was
Yes.
a battle VIP pass.
Yeah,
Here
not
to
too
clog
effective.
the hand.
No, not too effective. And I don't think he drew into another supporter unless he's hiding it pretty well. He'll definitely want to be finding those Iridas as early as possible to get this Baxcalibur up and running. We see the Ultra Ball here discard another 2 cards. However, with that Industrious Incisors already used, unfortunately thinning the hand for no other reason but to find another Pokemon.
No, looks like we're going for a Frigibax. Yep, nice and safe. Completely agree. I mean, okay, so we've got 2 sides of the coin here. It's either, oh, isn't that a nice piece of grub for Greninja to snack on with the Moonlight Shuriken? But then again, Hugo has to do everything he possibly can to stay in this game and keep those Frigibacks going. I suppose just hoping that Brent can't do much. Is opting for the KO there on Cramorant for 2 energy. Doesn't feel good.
No, it was so important to get that other Frigibax down. Of course, viewers at home might be asking, why didn't he put the Manaphy down? The Manaphy is so important here, right? Because of that Moonlight Shuriken. That's such a big threat. However, if he's able to simply, if Brent was able to simply gust the Frigibax for a knockout, you're still in the same position and you're left with no option for a potential Baxcalibur next turn. So Hugo is going to say, okay, I'm less likely to face a Moonlight Shuriken next turn than I am a Gust.
Yeah, I think that's a completely fair assessment. I think that I think I've been struck too many times by the Moonlight Shuriken. It strikes fear into me. It's happened too many times for me to count. I love Chien-Pao. I think it's a really fun deck to play. Super beginner friendly as well. If you are just getting into the Pokemon trading card game, I genuinely recommend picking up Chien-Pao as a very, very nice ease into the meta where you're still going to be winning games. You can see here, you know, round 13 of a tournament, Chien-Pao's still going.
Yeah, of course. And people still have confidence in it, which is great to see. And it keeps that meta nice and diverse. And here we see the first Mirage Gate for the game for Brent. And yeah, going for that Greninja. Now, it's whether lost zoning that water energy early on is going to be a problem for him. However, just eyeing up that additional psychic energy. We do see another Mirage Gate in hand, and the water's already in hand. So that Moonlight Shuriken is going to be coming thick and fast against Hugo.
Oh, Ben, I'm excited. I'm not excited, but I'm excited. I love seeing a Moonlight Shuriken on a Sunday morning, afternoon, whatever time zone everyone's in.
We're having fun. We don't want to tell time.
Honestly, I'm...
Touching the water. This will... Yeah, this will mean that he's looking to go... Oh, I quite like this play, actually, because if he's able to Super Rod and then, of course, Mirage Gate, you're using it for the maximum effect. So I actually really like this play from Brent. A Mirage Gate here would be able to attach an additional energy to, of course, the Greninja with that water, and then attach to the Giratina as well.
Masterful sequencing. That's exactly what we look for at this high-level play. Brent knows, you know, I need to keep energy resources fluid. And like you say, just having that option to attach an extra energy this turn by using the Mirage Gate because they got to the Lost Zone 7. And there it is, the scoop up. Oh, they're down. They're both down.
Writing was on the wall there for Hugo. If Brent was able to take a knockout on those 2 Frigibacks, it would have put him in such an awkward position. He would have had a Chien-Pao in the active and just that Bibarel on the bench. And with no Baxcalibur being able to attach those additional energies for turn, there was no way in which Hugo could attack, let alone pose any sort of threat.
Yeah, honestly, it was the writing was on the wall.
Yes.
Poor little Frigibacks just can't handle the barrage of Moonlight Shuriken, a very strong attack. I think at this point in time, I'd be debating which Radiant Pokemon has had the largest impact on this tournament. I'm not sure if Charizard or Greninja would sit in my top spot.
Well, it's funny you say that because I think I remember me and Joe going head-to-head about which one was best, Radiant Charizard or Radiant Greninja. I think I wholesomely lost that debate only because I think the Radiant Greninja has so much added consistency. You can splash it in almost any deck, right? If you're able to discard any type of energy, strategy, draw 2 additional cards. You know, it gives our players a lot of versatility as well as that added consistency. And having those additional 2 cards in the hand, sometimes you find that last-minute supporter, you find that last-minute resource that you just require to fill out your strategy.
Yeah, you're quite right. Greninja just has that flexibility. But Charizard, I don't know, it's just so ferocious. It can really swing the prize trade. You can ensure that you only have a single prize kind of bench or field. Yes. And I don't know, in some instances, I feel like Greninja can be a bit of a burden, like in Gardevoir. We saw that tempting trap that happened earlier in this event as well yesterday. So if you guys missed out on any of the action, you should go back and check that out too. So that was quite the riveting nail biter.
Quite the spectacle, definitely, from Tord, adding all of those different mismatch of cards, posing all sorts of different game plans in his head. And of course, that tempting trap so important. But let's stick to this game, of course. Brent able to use that Moonlight Shuriken to take the game against Hugo. And funnily enough, this was exactly what Hugo would have liked to have fulfilled for his game plan, ironically. And here we see the first prize cards come down from our game 2. Nothing too detrimental, I don't think, to either player.
Oh, but this is lovely. The Hisuian Heavy Ball gives Hugo a sneak peek at those prize cards right away, and I love that. I think there's a lot to be said for this card. Not only does it allow you to look at your prize cards, but there we go. Hugo can just note them down now.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly the game plan.
And this is what we see a lot of our top players do. They have a little notepad just on the side, writing down those prizes, because what this tells our players is what options are available to them. What have I prized here? What can I grab from the prizes? What are my outs here to a potential? Well, we see here the Bibarel is in the prize. This is exactly what Hugo is want to be taking a note down for. There's maybe in other matchups, and there's not really much point in benching that second Bidoof because I have no option to evolve it. So this is such a good play here from Hugo, of course, playing that Hisuian Heavy Ball, taking a quick note, and of course now he has that full knowledge for the rest of the game.
Yeah, great to know exactly what your prize cards are straight off the bat. Hisuian Heavy Ball once again proving that it truly has 2 effects. Just looking at the prize card alone being very strong, and then being able to take a basic Pokemon if you have one or choose to do so. Yeah,
and here we see the first deck search, not only having prize knowledge, but also deck knowledge as well, so just as important. And here we see that Radiant Greninja didn't make an appearance for Hugo in that first game, but also important, prioritizes benching that as soon as possible.
I'm not feeling great about that Ultra Ball discard, though, unfortunately. 1 rare candy. Rare candies are so valuable to Hugo's game plan, and we've got 1 back Excalibur in the prize cards. 2
very important items for Hugo to fill out any potential plays. Of course, a Gusting with that Cross Switcher, and of course, rare candy to evolve those Frigibaxes. No stage 1s in the deck for Hugo, so can't evolve the old-fashioned way into a stage 1, then stage 2, of course. So that we do see another rare candy in hand, so he does still have that insurance. However, just reducing his options to evolve, of course, into another Excalibur in the future if he needs to.
Love the Battle VIP pass here, really solidifying that board state, making sure that even if Brent comes in with a Spit Innocently, there are still options for Hugo, making sure, there we are, that's what I was very much expecting. Another Bidoof adds to the bench family.
I think the reason for doing this, I know we mentioned that he's already prized a Bibarel. Starting one isn't ideal either. He knows that Brent has the option to use a Cramorant Spit Innocently as soon as possible, being that he's going second, of course, is able to use a Colress's Experiment on his first turn, and it's so easy for these Lost Zone engines to get 4 cards in the Lost Zone as soon as possible. So realizing the problem there, you know, he wants to be, of course, getting these Bibarels evolved as soon as possible. So taking out that insurance that, you know, Brent is likely to find that Spit Innocently and take this knockout.
Yep, absolutely. And there we go. Straight away, straight off the bat, 2 in the Lost Zone already. But can Giratina wiggle its way out of the active spot? That's probably one of the harder decisions and trickier moments of the beginning of a Lost Zone Giratina deck, is that sometimes that Giratina can just get stuck in the active spot with its 2 retreat cost. However, Lots of switching options are available in the deck. It's just like another tricky beginning chorus experiment. Brent's had a bit of a hard time making these decisions.
Yeah, this is certainly a decision to make. Of course, with those early chorus experiments, as you mentioned earlier, you're more likely to find those really important resources. And here we see Brent deliberating whether to Lost Zone a super rod as well as an escape rope. And of course, with that Giratina in the active, it is posing a bit of a problem. And of course, I don't think I find any sort of... I thought I saw a nest ball in that chorus's experiment. Was that a nest ball? Yeah, it was a nest ball. Thankfully for Brent, of course, just having that Giratina in the active in a pass would have been really, really bad for him, of course, because Chen Pao is able to easily mop up 220 damage with that Hail Blade.
Yeah, with Chen Pao staring down at Brent and Hugo's pretty solid board state, Brent has to presume that this Giratina could get KO'd by Hugo next turn. So they're looking to not only solidify his own board state, but also make sure that the Lost Zone is being populated, knockouts are being taken where able. And I mean, it's a bit of a tough one in a sense, because Giratina's first attack can also Abyss Seeking,
yes.
To add to the Lost Zone. So it's not bad to have the Giratina in the active, but I think with the pressure that Chen Pao poses, it could be premature to leave it in the active at this stage.
Yeah, of course. And Brent could play mind games here, realizing that Hugo has already discarded one cross switcher and that it could be potentially Hugo's only out to a switch card. He could simply go for an Abyss Seeking here and go, well, if you have a Bidoof in the active, I'm absolutely fine with that. I might bide my time here. I might, like you say, populate that Lost Zone slowly here and steadily and gain some more cards in the hand, you know, understand what my engines are here. And here we see a conceal cards for a big Battle VIP pass.
Yeah, that was huge. Managing to get the Battle VIP pass there, I think, was pretty crucial. Honestly, it wasn't looking great for Brent. Otherwise, could be left with just a single Greninja by the end of next turn, which would not have been quite so fancy. Not quite what we expect from Lost Zone Giratina. But we're not having that Tina experience here today. We're having a nice, fruitful bench to begin this battle on an even playing field.
Yeah, feeling confident as well. Benching that Cramorant, of course, it may be that an Abyss Seeking is on the cards for Brent here. Of course, with no Comfey on the bench, no Flower Selectings in play, meaning that he's comfortable with only 2 in the Lost Zone. And again, could be playing mind games. Like I mentioned earlier, he's happy to see that Bidoof stay in the active. Understanding Hugo has got one of those very important switching resources could mean that he's happy to go slow and steady for this game.
Slow and steady can win the race. Oh, okay. That might be what turns the tides. We're going for an Abyss Seeking here. Brent will be allowed to put 2 cards into the Lost Zone and keep 2 for himself, popping them in his hand. But there's a really tough decision there with the Jet Energy, Roxanne, and Chorus Experiment. Looks like we've opted for the Roxanne. And the path to the peak, I really think that's going to make a difference here. That at least allows Brent kind of the sanctuary of knowing he's done everything he can to try and stop a KO on his Giratina this turn. And
if Hugo wants to get this Bidoof out the active as well, he is gonna have to find those 2 additional cross switcher. Now, none are in the prizes, so he still has 3 available to him in the deck. However, finding them is another problem in itself. However, what Brent's done here is kind of ingenious, actually, because even if Hugo switches out this Bidoof, we know that one is already prized. He's played the additional one as a sort of insurance, just in case that active gets knocked out. And what Hugo will be left with is one Bidoof that is unable to be evolved. So I'm eager to see how this one plays out for Hugo.
You could say you're an eager beaver to see what But here we go with an Irida for a Baxcalibur and, yeah, an Ultra Ball. I love to see that, yep, because then we'll be able to use the rare candy of one of our only Frigibags into the Baxcalibur before it's too late, and then Ultra Ball for the only Bibarel in the
The only Bibarel, yeah, of course, that lonely Bibarel. Working hard for that Industrious Incisors, but I really like going for the Ultra Ball, of course, in this deck list. Of course, able to thin out that hand for those additional cards from Industrious Incisors. You can see why this engine works so well as those cards like Superior Energy Retrieval in combination with Shivery Chill. It thins that hand right down and, of course, maximizes the potential of your Industrious Incisors.
Yeah, and it seems like we've just passed the turn there.
Yeah.
Looks like it, yeah, just holding on to resources. I suppose it's a really thin hand, probably didn't want to Ultra Ball things away. You're going to have to wait on the next top deck. So we're over to Brent.
I think what Hugo wants here is for Brent to knock out one of these Bidoofs, quite frankly. Leaving them unevolved will mean that, you know, they look like a very edible prizes for Brent. 260 HP Bidoof. They're very easy targets for that Spit Innocently. So if he's able to get one of these knocked out, he has a free switch out, not having to use the cross switches, of course, and of course with 2 Bidoof, he still has both chances to evolve into that Bibarel.
Looks like we're going to be flying towards 7 in the Lost Zone for this turn, Ben. I think Brent definitely has that on his mind, and it definitely feels like it's possible with the cards that he has available. Going for a Giratina V-Star.
Yeah.
Lost Zone there. That scares me with the one that's in prizes.
Interesting choice, yes. With that Giratina V-Star in the prizes, like you said, and with one in the Lost Zone, only one available to Brent, and he's going to be having to really stick to that lonely V-Star and being able to use that as effectively as possible. Reducing your outs to the V-Star with only having one left in the deck isn't fantastic. Of course, we know how delicate this Lost Zone engine can be.
There we go. Raced towards the 7. 7 in the Lost Zone, our second magic number of the day. Now, Brent will be able to use those fantastic Mirage Gates, allowing him to search his deck for 2 different types of energy attachment to his Pokemon any way he likes. Just a very powerful card.
Yeah, for sure.
Nothing more to be said. Here's the first one. What's he going to go for? The Greninja's still an option here, but I mean, it doesn't really do much against Hugo's board right now, so maybe just getting a Giratina ready instead. Oh, I imagine, gosh, I'm really a bit stuck here of what I would do in Brent's shoes.
Yeah, this is really a stalemate situation. He enjoys having that Bidoof in the active for Hugo. Of course, we've already established on a number of occasions now that it's requiring resources from Hugo to get that Bidoof out of the active. However, what Brent's doing here, he's slowly but surely getting his board state set up for those later turns. If he's able to gust next turn against that Chen Pao, this would be a really advantageous position to be in for Brent.
We have a large contingent of Pokemon with a bewildering mix of moves. However, which one to use at the right time is really going to show whether skill is going to rule the day here.
Now, evolving into the V-Star is very interesting, right? Because I think if Hugo is able to respond with a knockout somehow on this Giratina V-Star, it leaves Brent with none in the deck, none in hand either. Oh, and takes the knockout against the Bidoof. So Brent initiating this prize race in game 2 of our round 13.
We've started the first leg of the race. Let's see if Hugo can respond, whether the pace has been set or if Hugo needs a little bit more time to get set up effectively.
And this is exactly the problem now for Chen Pao. Doesn't play any boss's orders, right? So the only gusting options for Hugo will be those cross switches. Promoting the Chen Pao, he doesn't like his odds into finding those cross switches, but really needs to get rid of that Giratina V-Star.
Okay, I quite like the Iono here. Brent's going to have to put 2 Korra's Experiment to the bottom of their deck. That is not great for Brent.
No, has the engine already set up with that Baxcalibur, but still needs to evolve that lonely old Bidoof into that Bibarel. Pretty quick shot, but with Iono, finds a fresh 6 cards, of course, wants to be able to find outs to potential energy. Shivery Trill, not an option at the moment with that path to the pig, so definitely going to be looking for an out to get rid of that.
Indeed. It could be a bit of a struggle going forward. Now, we still have an Earthen Vessel You know, it's kind of shivery chill in disguise, shivery chill at home, as some might say, because we're still able to get 2 energy. So choosing to discard 1 lightning type energy, not very useful right now, but does kind of show Brent that there's something else going on in there. And now we do have the Ultra Ball, so again, there's potential for going and fetching the Bibarel, discarding some of that energy, because we know that we have so many resources to get it back.
Yeah, it does have superior energy retrieval, so I really like the discarding of the energy because he knows he has so many outs to find that superior energy retrieval. He hasn't used any yet, didn't even use any last game either.
Nope.
So discarding those 2 water energy is of no risk for this archetype.
No, and I like that. It's just being able to be a bit more free and flexible with the energy. It's not just a resource to give to your Pokemon, it's a resource that you can use to get there. You can use it for an Ultra Ball. It's fine, it's not a problem. You've assessed for this. You've got the time and the patience. And honestly, if anything, it also just minimizes the amount of cards in the hand. There, Hugo completely emptying his hand for this fresh incisors.
Yeah, he really enjoys seeing this. No high fives, unfortunately, from Brent for a fresh hand of 5 cards, of course. And here we see the Pokestop as well. It's all coming together finally for Hugo, and he's going to be able to take a knockout on this lonely old Cramorant with that Hail Blade, only requiring to discard 2 water energy. But again, much like our last feature game with Chen Pao, it's that second attacker which I'm worried about. He needs to be benching another Chen Pao or another attacking option for those future turns.
Yeah, unfortunately, Greninja's not looking like a fantastic attacker in this game right now. Brent will probably try and minimize the amount of Pokemon that can be KO'd by Greninja, making sure we're staying kind of below our... Is that an energy review too?
Yeah, energy.
Sorry, yeah, kind of keeping it below 90 HP across the bench so that Hugo can't monopolize on the fact that they can use that Greninja as a valid attacking option.
It's a really important point because we spoke about this earlier with the game plan that Chen Pao has in this matchup to be able to use that Moonlight Shuriken. But what Brent's done here is kind of ingenious. He's able to use that Abyss Seeking rather than these multiple flower selectings to get his deck up and going and his board state in the way that it is. Without having to use those Comfeys, you're mitigating the risk yet again. You're taking those lowly HP Comfeys out of the play so they can't be used for that Moonlight Shuriken.
Oh, here we go. We've got that beautiful alternate art Iron Hands hitting the bench for the first time in this best of 3 Swiss round 13. This could change the flow of battle.
Yeah, it certainly could. Ampy very much is a fantastic asset for Hugo to use, definitely in this matchup. Of course, we'll be taking 2 prizes on those low HP Pokemon, like the Cramorant, like the Comfey. However, with 2 Giratina, one Giratina V-Star and a Giratina V, nice and powered up with 2 energy already on it. It's whether Hugo wants to prioritize this as an attacking option, of course, being 2 prizes, because taking 2, you're just going to be responded, and with Brent already ahead of the prize race, this could be a problem.
Yeah, it could be. And Brent kind of had oaths to the fact that Iron Hands was there, but almost a little bit too late to do much to kind of avoid having a Pokemon in the active spot that can be KO'd by Ampy very much, especially considering the weakness on 2 of Brent's Pokemon being Greninja and Cramorant.
Yeah, of course. And using that Ampy very much, of course, you are able to take 2 prizes on these low HP, like we said. So this is going to be Hugo's second attacker. Like we said, he does need to get another one set up. So this is his chosen option. So yeah, I like this retreat into the Chen Pao. Using that Iron Hands as early as possible means those larger knockouts with Hail Blade are still an option to him.
Yeah, I love that. And considering Hail Blade can take energy off any Pokemon for its effect, that's just absolutely fantastic, being able to go, okay, well, I've saved a few resources on this Iron Hands, using kind of my cross switches, being able to switch in and out, and then I can use the energy on it for a bigger KO later.
Yeah, of course. And Hugo's up and running there, really. He has his Baxcalibur, he has his Bibarel, he has all of these different outlets available to him now. So this is really his board state set up. He has a second attacker on board as well, and it's now the case of, can I keep up with Brent? Can I keep up with these larger knockouts with the Giratina V-Star? And of course, he has to deal with the problem of being behind on the prize race if Brent was able to take this knockout.
Yeah, Brent needs to respond to this, really. It's problematic. Now, Hugo doesn't run the boss's orders, as we analysed earlier, but cross switches are still a threat as far as Brent will be concerned. So it is something that needs to be dealt with now, and we don't really want to leave that energy on the board for later either. Again, it's just too menacing staring down at Brent's board. So I imagine he's going to want to try and get 2 more in the lost zone on this turn, if he can, but the Colress went to the bottom of the deck from the Iono, so it's a really tough call of whether Brent's going to be able to respond to this effectively or not.
Yeah, it's a toughie. I would really like to see a potential gust play on that Chen Pao. I think that's the biggest problem that Brent has, especially on Hugo's board state. Having that Hailblade as an attacking threat, there's, of course, that damage is unlimited, really. If you can find the energies for that Shivery Chill, you can attach as many of those waters as possible and take those larger knockouts, and therefore your 280 HP isn't so awkward anymore. It isn't so much of a problem.
It really is a tough call. And yeah, there we are. Hugo's just having a little peek at the lost zone there, having a little dive into the darkness to see how many energy are in there, to see whether Brent's going to be able to sustain this game or whether Hugo can kind of play off the fact that Brent might have to put some more energy in the lost zone here.
Again, as well, as a good point. I think I would really like, again, that gust on that Chen Pao as well, leaving that Iron Hands as the only attacking option, because if Brent is able to put a Giratina V-Star into the active, that amp you very much, it's not taking those additional prizes. It's not posing as much of a problem for Brent, and it requires Hugo to have that gust, and we know that without any boss's orders, that's quite difficult to accomplish.
It is difficult to achieve, that is for certain. Pokestop's here to help us out. Bibarel, though, I think Hugo's got a pretty good chance of getting towards that goal as long as they don't get past. But here we go, we've decided to go for a completely different option to anything in our wildest dreams, going for the Baxcalibur. Now, this is not only a potential stall, but also a knockout could be a bit devastating here.
And this is well, what you're doing here with the Baxcalibur, knocking this out, is you're asking questions again to Hugo as to whether you can find specific resources. In this case, it would be the rare candy. We know that he discarded one earlier. He's already used another one, so it's whether Hugo can find that now to evolve that other Frigibax on the bench.
I really love this move from Brent as well, using Shred on a Giratina V instead of using the V-Star to retain resources, make sure that we're not overexerting ourselves with energy usage. I really love that. Although, you know, 220 HP is a little bit scary. We don't love that because Hugo does have the potential of reaching those high numbers. You're right. If Hugo can't evolve this second Frigibax, then actually all of Brent's prayers are answered.
Yeah, I completely agree. I do really like using the Shred because you're keeping that V-Star nice and safe onto the bench as well. You know that it's not going to be a problem using that in the future turns. However, what you're doing here, using the Shred, you're only taking one prize, Amy. And what you're doing there is you're equaling the prize race. You're not going ahead. So it's whether Hugo can find these resources. We know he already has the rare candy in hand. All he has to find now is a way to get that Baxcalibur. And then he's back up and running with this race.
Yeah, you're quite right. It may not be enough to keep Hugo down for very long. There is their rare candy in hand. And yeah, we did see, you know, rare candies are that finite resource, as we've spoken about. If you manage to take out enough Baxcalibur, or if Hugo is forced to discard some rare candies at some stage, then actually, you know, we can end up with no Baxcalibur on board, and that's just devastating for any Chen Pao player.
Yeah, of course. And here we see the Shivery Jill getting another 2 energy into the hand. Of course, we imagine they will be attached to that Chen Pao sometime soon if Hugo was able to find that Baxcalibur. I think what he was trying to do there is with that Super Rod, he's deliberating whether he wants to play this now or whether he wants to draw from the Industrious Incisors. What you're doing with the Shivery Chill, you're adding cards to the hand, and therefore it puts that Industrious Incisors that little bit less effective. It does have 2 superior energy retrieval in the hand, of course, but Super Rodding them back in, you're not going to be able to use them as much.
We're still digging, but to no prevail. Greninja's drawn us into 2 Pokemon by the looks of things. Not particularly helpful.
No, not
Oh
of
my
course.
goodness, this isn't looking great, to be honest, Ben.
Does have the Irida, I think. There's the Irida coming down, so that will be able to find the Baxcalibur, that all-important one Baxcalibur. But the biggest problem here for Hugo, with that rare candy being used this turn, what that will mean is that, of course, there are no more rare candies to use. So if Brent was able to gust up that Baxcalibur once again, it'll put Hugo in a real tight spot.
Yeah, it very much could. I mean, yeah, did Brent super rod the Baxcalibur back in? Because he only runs 2 Baxcalibur and one's in the prize cards.
I thought he did super rod that one back in. Did he super rod a Frigibax accidentally? He's going to have to Irida for...
Is it there? Wait, no, it is there. No, that's not. I don't think he put it back in.
Did he not put the Baxcalibur back in? I thought he...
It doesn't seem to be there unless he's really having a sort.
Well,
Could be having a sort.
Well, if he hasn't, he's in a much more difficult spot than I ever thought he would be.
Oh no! I think maybe a little.
Unfortunately,
fortunate moment has meant that we're going to have to take a cross switcher and a Frigibax.
I mean, he still has all that energy put onto the Iron Hands, so that still is an out for him to keep up with this prize race. But unfortunately, without that Baxcalibur, he wouldn't be able to take a knockout on either of these Giratina V-Star or Vs. Yeah, unfortunate for Hugo there. I mean, I got confused with that water Pokemon there, so maybe he did also. Unable to find that Baxcalibur from that rare, from that Irida, sorry. And here we see the first Pokestop. Oh, not fantastic.
I don't love that. No, that's a whole lot of hand clogging there. We don't love it for Bibarel. Bibarel's like, oh, what am I supposed to do with these?
Hey, we love our Battle VIP pass, but not on turn 7 or turn 8 for Hugo. And here we see the benching of that other Frigibax, of course, understanding that Brent does still have that Moonlight Shuriken on the bench with that Radiant Greninja. And now it's what options does Hugo really have? I don't think he even had the second cross switcher in. Oh, that's super unfortunate.
No. If Hugo would have had the second cross switcher, we could have been all right, because Frigibax is fine to be evolved next turn. You know, Iron Hands into a Comfey, great, taking him down to 2 prize cards. I thought maybe we still had a chance here, but this could be Brent's shining moment to just pull so far ahead in this race that Hugo can't come back.
I certainly think it might be. I think with Hugo, with that unfortunate play, I think now that Brent's going to be taking these 2 prize cards on this Chen Pao, I think it puts him in such a fantastic position. Both Giratina V-Stars now evolved as well. Just 1-star Requiem on this existing Iron Hands EX on the bench will give him the game here in this round 13.
Kapow! Major damage, Brent, and there it is, the handshake to seal the deal. Unfortunately for Hugo, there was no coming back from no Baxcalibur, and that's exactly what Brent was betting on.
Yeah, unfortunate there. I think both players are also discussing the problem that was there, but fortunate for Hugo, still has a fantastic record going into the rest of our Swiss rounds. But our winner, Brent Hermans, putting Giratina V-Star on the map once again with a comfortable win against Chen Pao.
Very comfortable indeed, yeah. It was